I have some great HOA stories for you today, and you're going to love that title story too. Here's our first one. This story takes place in an HOA, or at least that's what this insane Karen thinks. To give some backstory, I'm a 19-year-old in a community college living in a small neighborhood in my parents' old, small house. I mow my own lawn, which is reasonably small because there is no HOA and I can't hire anyone to do it for me. Also, the sun and exercise is great. 3 of my neighbors are either elderly, don't have the time, or don't own mowers of their own, so I mow their reasonably small lawns for free at the same time that I mow mine. I live in a very close neighborhood, so while I may do mowing, another neighbor may power wash driveways or some such. Let's just say I mow out of the goodness of my heart, and I get compensated with a bottle of cold water afterward by 2 out of the 3. The 3rd, however, is where the malicious compliance begins. The 3rd neighbor is a very stubborn 40-something-year-old lady who owns her own mower, she can afford to hire someone to do it for her, is very specific about how and when her lawn gets done even though it's free. Reason 3 ticks me off the most, honestly, because she does not let me use my mower or fix hers. Seriously, it's like she's punishing me for volunteering to help her. And this mower is a piece of junk. The blades are dull, and she doesn't let me sharpen them. It's clogged full of old grass. She doesn't let me clean it. And yet, every time I ask if I can tidy it up, she snaps, "Quit wasting time and just get the job done." She is mean, entitled, and doesn't care that I do 4 lawns in one day. Even on days where I can't mow the lawn because I'm feeling under the weather or I'm just busy with school, she threatens to call the HOA. Again, we don't have one, and report me for running a business without a license unless I get the lawn mowed. I'm pretty sure of 3 things. You don't need a license to mow a lawn, it's not a business since I don't ask for money or compensation, and that she doesn't have the number for the homeowners association that doesn't exist. I honestly should have stopped volunteering to mow her lawn a long time ago, but I just never had the heart. Except for last week. It's July, rainy and very hot, and on the morning I was scheduled to mow, it poured like a son of a bee. Now, those of you who mow lawns know, you can't, or rather shouldn't, mow your lawn directly after it rains for various reasons, and my neighborhood is pretty shaded, so it takes at least a day to dry up. So around 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm just relaxing and enjoying the free time, when out of nowhere, there's a frantic smashing of a fist on my door. I would call it pounding, but it honestly wasn't. Lo and behold, it's stubborn lady Karen, looking annoyed as ever. As soon as I crack my door, the yelling starts, and I'm almost blasted back as she tries to push my door open. I couldn't make out most of what she was saying, but I did hear the words lazy, brat, and millennial thrown in there. I'm pretty laid back and used to dealing with angry adults, so this doesn't irk me all that much, but when she pushed the door open, that started to tick me off. And then she started to talk in an understanding voice. "Why isn't my lawn mowed? I need it mowed right now." "Ma'am, it rained pretty heavily today and I can't I don't give a rat's butt what the weather is like. You better get your freaking butt out there. I have company." "Ma'am, I'm not going to do your lawn. I didn't even mow my own today. Please stop harassing me." With her teeth clenched and her neck veins popping, "If you don't mow the lawn right freaking now, I will report you like I should have done a long time ago." Now, while I could have argued, which I don't like to do, I thought of a better plan. "All right, ma'am, may I at least use my mower?" "No freaking way, you snot-nosed kid. I want my lawn exactly the way I like it." My plan was in action. So, grabbing her lawnmower and seeing that her and her company's freshly rained-on fancy cars were all right on the edge of the lawn, I started to mow. I only got about halfway through before the mower completely shut down due to clogging and the sheer dullness of the blade, but it all worked out. Later that day, after a nice shower and a meal, I heard the reaction to my compliance, which was, to my amusement, the insane screaming and ranting about why the lawn was only half done and every car was caked in mud and grass. I only got in trouble with her, as none of my neighbors liked her very much, and of course she threatened again to report me to the non-existent HOA, to which I said, "Go ahead." And then, once and for all, I told her that I refused to mow her lawn ever again. An update: I would just like to add that the other neighbors are going super out of their way and pitching me a few dollars to help me buy a brand new self-propelled mower. Go neighborliness. All expenses paid vacation? Sure thing. Posted by Evertiro. Ages ago, I was a senior developer for a company that revitalized other companies. Think of it as sort of a mini Shark Tank. We would find small businesses that had a great idea but were struggling, and we'd help them achieve their goals in exchange for a cut. Sometimes this meant providing development or engineering talent to get a product off the ground. Sometimes it meant providing literal capital. Sometimes it meant providing staffing services, like support staff and experienced executives for commonplace needs. We were also a relatively small company, so it wasn't uncommon for our people to have multiple hats. There was one time when I was working as development lead for one client while acting as interim CTO for another client. It could be a bit chaotic, but it paid pretty well. It was a great experience and a wide variety of things I normally wouldn't have had, and it was usually pretty fun. So, one Friday afternoon, we get a call from a client who was particularly frustrating, a frequent flyer, if you will. They seemed to make every 30-second fix into an insurmountable problem. I'm going to be intentionally vague about the specific industry the client was in. It's a tiny industry that anyone in their industry would be able to identify them just from the industry and city. This particular call comes in early in the afternoon. They recently moved things around and now none of their printers work. Obviously, it's mission critical. We do some remote troubleshooting, but can't even get a flicker of life from the device. We spent an hour or so trying to work through what happened before discovering that there's a really good reason it won't work. The cable didn't reach where they moved it to, so it wasn't actually plugged in. Well, that's about as stereotypical as an IT problem can get, right? Just plug it in and you'll be good to go. But management says that's not the solution they want. And while it's totally possible to run a Cat5 line to the new location, they really want it wireless since that's the big thing these days. Okay, that's easy too. Most of our comparably sized clients had switched to wireless networking for parts of their offices, so we already had the right procedures in place, deployment scripts set up, and so on. All they had to do was plug in the device, which could be very easily acquired at any electronics store, and we could remotely handle everything else in a matter of minutes. But nope, management dictates that we absolutely have to have a person on site in the morning to set it up for them. At this point, it's very late afternoon on a Friday, and everyone but me and my boss, the CEO, had gone home for the day. Boss isn't about to lose his weekend, and crap rolls downhill, so I drew the short straw. We reached out to the client to make sure that they knew what they were asking. They were in Chicago. We were several states away in the Midwest, nearing the end of the day on a Friday. If they wanted me to be there by morning, they'd have to pony up for whatever flight we could arrange at short notice, and there was only one flight left that night going from our relatively small airport to Chicago, and the only available seat was in first class. Additionally, it would be taking off in just under 2 hours, meaning I wouldn't have time to get home and pack anything if I was going to make the flight. They reiterated that it was absolutely crucial that I be there in the morning, and they would happily pay for whatever flight was necessary. Additionally, I was told that they would have a room pre-booked at the Palmer House. They regularly use the room there for VIPs and such, and I could charge whatever I needed to the room. Further, they said that if I ended up needing to stay longer than the day, they'd reimburse me for any clothing or essentials I had to purchase since it was so incredibly last minute. Okay, I can live with that. I get to the airport 10 minutes before boarding, make it through the vacant airport, past the TSA checkpoint, and to my gate as they're closing the door. Literally the last person on the last flight of the day. I arrive in Chicago and, shockingly, there's a company car, effectively a limo, literal black car service before Uber was a thing, waiting for me. He takes me to the hotel, as promised, and hands me an envelope before pulling away from the curb. The envelope contains a prepaid debit card and a note saying it has $250 on it for incidentals, but please charge anything I can to the room. Sweet. Was expecting it to be a long weekend in grungy clothes. I checked in and went to bed. The next morning, I show up at their office bright and early. I sit around for half of the morning before anyone shows up to let me in. They then show me the new printer area, which is, as expected, well outside of the area of the office which was originally wired for networking in what was once a break area. I go, yep, that's not going to work with your old wired hub. Run across the street, literally door to door was one street apart, to the closest electronics store, pick up their shiny new wireless router, run back to their office, plug it in, and then get on the closest computer, run through the 30-second setup, run the script that updates the configs for their quirky, antiquated software so that it picks up the new printers in the office, and tell the owner that it's all set up. He gets this sort of confused look on his face and says, "Already?" I respond by pointing out that we did tell them in advance that we could do it remotely if they were willing to actually plug in the device for us, and he finally realized how silly the call-out was. But now he feels obligated to save face. I'm instructed that I'm to remain in Chicago until the close of business Monday to ensure there are no issues with the new hardware under actual use. Obviously, it'd be fiscally irresponsible to fly me out twice in a week. I asked for clarification. They're instructing me to stay checked into the fairly expensive hotel and keep billing things to my room through Monday night? Yes. What am I supposed to do with the rest of the weekend? Is there anything else at their local office that I can fix while I'm here? Nope. Go eat a hot dog and play tourist. Just keep my phone handy and make sure that I show up at opening time on Monday. Okay, can do. I go back across the street, pick up a charger for my phone, find a nearby department store, and pick up a few changes of cheap clothes. I stop by the hotel to drop off my purchases and spend the rest of the weekend playing tourist. Okay, I did a tiny bit of sightseeing and spent most of the time catching up on sleep, but I did ensure to avail myself of room service for every single meal at their expense before showing up bright and early Monday morning. I sat in their office for the majority of the workday before the owner came and found me to give me the travel details for my return flight. He even suggested that I'd done a great job, really I didn't do anything but plug a device in, and should get a drink before heading to the airport and bill it to the room. As suggested, I went back to the hotel, packed my stuff in my laptop bag, stopped in the bar for a drink, who knew hotels had $100+ drinks, and headed to the airport. All told, they shelled out about $1,000 just for the room, probably 2/3 of that in room service fees, several hundred in transportation to and from the airport, not to mention the flights, because they didn't want to walk across the street, pick up the easily obtainable piece of hardware, and plug it in. I got a 3.5-day vacation with first-class travel, one way anyway, halfway across the country for doing just that. Biohazard problem? Alright, we'll do whatever it takes. Posted by Tillybean. I finally quit my job as a teacher at a small private preschool that's been turning into a dumpster fire for about a year now. As such, I thought I would post my small but satisfying MC here in celebration. Disclaimer, do not read if you can't handle the thought of dirty diapers. As a dad, bring it on. Just makes it funnier. Let's dive right in. So let me explain some context first. This school was my dream job right out of college, as their mission statement aligns with nearly everything I learned in school with current research and whatnot. At first, it was great. I got hired during the pandemic, so there were very few kids enrolled at first, and everything was relatively calm. Slowly, however, everything began to unravel. The owner is new to business and does not know how to balance that with the empathy and emotional energy it takes to run a school with small children. I slowly began to see the dollar signs in his eyes. He was catering to rich families and would do anything to keep up the front of a perfect school, no matter what. He would disregard the teachers' mental and physical health for the sake of his image. He would hold tight to the money the center made, and despite repeated requests from teachers and the director, it was nearly impossible to get him to invest in anything that the center needed, such as more outdoor equipment for the playgrounds, items teachers need each week for their lessons, and so on. This even goes for things that are posing a safety hazard. The infant-toddler playground has a fence lined entirely on the outside by small rocks. The children reach out right through, pick one out, and stick it in their mouths. The teacher spent a lot of time corralling children away from the fence. His only solution was to put up some chicken wire on the outside, but only in certain areas and not even in our main problem area. Apparently, it would have looked horrible to find an alternative decorative option aside from small rocks around his building. Needless to say, he made it difficult to get anything new or needed for the center. Then, we got a new assistant director, or AD. She was, okay. She was a former teacher promoted to the position after our former AD moved, but she had very little admin experience or charisma. Suddenly, with her addition to the team, the admin began to crack down on everything. They started raising the bar on curriculum and classroom standards, on employee behavior and dress code. They would add a new thing to the handbook every week as they discovered new things happening that they disliked. We started getting at least 2 emails a week with some other new expectation, 90% a negative thing they wanted to tell us about. Unfortunately, being that the childcare system in America is utter garbage and has a high turnover rate of teachers, our school was perpetually understaffed. This made adhering to new guidelines and expectations hard, especially when they were struggling to get us the time we needed away from our classrooms to fulfill their requirements for lesson planning and such. So, here comes the small but satisfying malicious compliance. At one of our trainings, the AD instructed us on new protocol for our diaper pails. If your diaper pail fills up before the end of the day, you can't put the bag in a trash can inside the building. It must be taken outside and thrown in the dumpster. But the pails should be big enough to last you all day, so we aren't sure why you guys are emptying them out so often. The diaper pails they provided us with were super small and cheap. The only way they would last all day is if you were only throwing away small-sized diapers. The infant room was the only one able to use the pail all day without needing to empty it and replace the bag. My room throws out about 50 to 70 diapers every day, and it would fill up after about 20 of those and need to be emptied. By the time you got to the 2-year-old room, they had large diapered children and could fit maybe 1 round of diapers in it before they would have to change it out. Most of us had been throwing the diaper bags in the trash can contained within the diapering area. Children would rarely be anywhere near the trash can we used, or if they were, the bag was tied up tight before being thrown in. This was fast and easy and allowed us to get on with our busy and fast-paced day. But no, it posed too much of a biohazard, they said. We teachers suggested that this problem could be fixed if they could get us bigger and nicer diaper pails, or even 2 of them in the older rooms who needed more dirty diaper storage. Most of us had pails that were broken in some way anyway, and the locking system on them was so awful that even my least sneaky 12 months old could get into the pail itself easily. I'd caught them gazing into the abyss of dirty diapers several times, but anytime we told the admin about this, they didn't do anything to fix it aside from just telling us to redirect them. And yet, throwing the bags away in the trash cans they can barely reach was more of a biohazard. AD says, okay, we'll see about the pails being replaced, but honestly, just take them out to the dumpster. We ask, okay, how are we supposed to go out to the dumpster 2+ times a day when we are ratio locked on teachers in the classroom? Now, ratio locked means that there are too many children for one teacher to legally be allowed to be alone in with the room, so both teachers have to be in the room at all times. AD says, oh, just call us every time you need it brought out. Someone will step in for you, or they can take it out. All right. So, on the next day, we do just that. We call when we need it taken out. AD says someone will be over soon. But wait, we're understaffed, and there's always something going on elsewhere in the building. Hours pass. Nobody comes. The diaper garbage stays by the door forgotten, posing more of a biohazard than if it were sitting contained in the garbage can. The other classrooms give up and start looking for other ways to get around the new rule. But my co-teacher, CO, and I decide on a different course of action. We take it out ourselves on our lunch breaks. So, CO takes it out on her 11:30 a.m. lunch break to get rid of the large load of morning diapers, and I take it out on my 2 p.m. lunch break to get rid of the lunch and nap diapers. Between getting it out, walking out of the building, opening the heavy gate to the dumpster, throwing it in the dumpster, and walking back, this took an extra 5 minutes or so on our lunchtime. Sometimes it would take longer if we had to help out in the classroom for a few minutes before rushing it out and going on break. Eventually, AD asked us why we're throwing our lunches off by a couple of minutes every day. We explained that we do not want the diaper garbage sitting out in the classroom, but that it was hard to get anyone in to allow us that 5 minutes to take care of it. Oh, AD decides that this is fine. So we carry on with this. And then one day, I end up having to do the diaper trash after my lunch. I get into the room to grab the bag out of the diaper pail, and CO asked me for some quick help before I take it out. The other teacher who was covering my lunch was outside with the 1-teacher ratio allowed for our age group, so CO just needed some help before I went to relieve her of duty. Of course I help her. She also needed a bathroom break, which is not an uncommon request between lunch transitions, since it's sometimes the only time we get to go. Again, it's hard to get people to come cover you for anything in an understaffed center. By the time I finish helping her and get the diaper trash out, it's been 15 minutes over my normal lunchtime. Maybe, normally, this wouldn't be a problem. But today, apparently the teacher covering me had been needed back in their home classroom exactly after I got back, because the AD was in that room covering for them while their CO went home and they, of course, had to do lunches. The AD was supposed to have been helping with a meeting with some parents. They ended up being 15 minutes late. Whoops. Later, I get called to the office just to talk to the AD. They lecture me, asking me what I was thinking coming back so late. I explained my situation. CO had needed help. We hadn't been told anyone was on such a super tight time crunch, otherwise we would have tried to be even faster about it. We hadn't meant to screw up anyone's day. When you come back from your lunch, I don't want you helping CO. Take out the garbage and come straight to relieve your covering teacher, AD says. Wow, all right. I nod and get back to my classroom. I explain the conversation to CO. She gets visibly upset about this. I think she may have talked to the director at that point, because a few days later, following the new law of diaper pail garbage disposal, not helping a single soul even when asked, coming back 5 minutes late still for every lunch, every day, we get a call to our classroom phone one morning. CO answers it. When she gets off, she's grinning. That was AD. We can start throwing the bags in our classroom trash bin again. Our method is just inconveniencing them too much and taking too much extra time. Oh Lord, I had a good laugh. And this was months ago. From then until the day I left, we never got the new diaper pails that would alleviate the entire problem. Funny how suddenly a biohazard isn't a problem when the solution will cost them time and money.
HOA Karen demands what I do on my property, but I'm not even in the HOA. Click the video on your screen so you don't miss the crazy fallout of this one, and I'll see you there.